She was ready to walk away until he revealed a touching twist of fate that transformed everything. Sarah pulled her scrubs tight, frustration boiling just beneath the surface of her forced smile. It felt like an endless cycle-long hours at the hospital. Every inch of her soul poured into patience. Yet the nagging doubts about her future loomed larger than ever. With each busy shift, the dreams to become a nurse practitioner slipped further away, obscured by the mounting bills and her mother's increasing need for care. A simple desk job stared her in the face as a temptation. A move that would gain her stability but rob her of the passion she so desperately held onto being a nurse. And there it was again, a lump in her throat, as she stepped into the bustling corridors of the hospital. That familiar ache, the weight of her ambitions growing heavier, shackling her spirit. She thought about her family, her mother's health declining, their financial situation worse with each passing month. Could she really afford to chase her dreams? What if securing a stable job meant letting go of everything she cherished? Just when doubt threatened to suck her under, she bumped into Josh, an intern whose enthusiasm radiated like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. His genuine smile made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "Hey, Sarah, right?" he said. And in that moment, it felt as if it was only them in the bustling corridor. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, each word igniting flickers of hope, long snuffed out by despair. For the first time in weeks, someone saw her worth not just as a caregiver, but as a person with dreams worth pursuing. As their friendship deepened, Sarah uncovered a long-buried family secret. Her grandmother, a pioneering nursing professor, had made significant contributions to the field, yet the gender biases of her time had cast her achievements in shadows. This revelation awakened a fire within Sarah, but it also weighed heavy on her. Did she have the courage to step into her grandmother's legacy, knowing the risks it posed? If she tried to expose the injustices of the hospital system benefiting from her grandmother's work, she could risk everything she'd built. Hadn't she towed the line for far too long? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she navigated this tumultuous sea of emotions, Sarah felt her heart racing with the implications of her discovery, a blend of hope and anxiety coursing through her veins. Could she stand against the tide of expectations that weighed her down? With each piece of her grandmother's story she uncovered, the stakes felt impossibly high. People depended on her. Her parents' well-being hung in a precarious balance alongside her aspirations. In a moment of quiet turmoil, Sarah found herself staring at her grandmother's old nursing school diploma. The words seemed to pulse with history and expectation. Her breath hitched. What would happen if she tried to reclaim this legacy? What if she failed and lost everything, even the fragile stability of today? Just then her phone chimed a message that would shake the very foundation of her understanding. Could this be the twist of fate she never saw coming? Uncertainty clawed at her as she reached for the device, the echo of her family's legacy whispering from the depths. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she glanced at the screen. The notification was from an unknown number, but her heart raced with trepidation. She opened the message, her mind swirling with the implications of what it could mean. "I know about your grandmother's work. We should talk." The words struck her with the force of a tidal wave, reverberating in her mind. Did someone really want to connect her with her grandmother's legacy? Or was this an ominous threat signaling trouble that lay ahead? Instinctively, she tucked the phone back into her pocket, feeling the weight of it against her hip like a ticking clock. Memories of her grandmother's stories came flooding back, tales of overcoming the odds and battling systemic prejudices in her pursuit of nursing excellence. This was a moment of reckoning. If she chose to engage with whoever sent the message, it could lead to an opportunity to reclaim her grandmother's legacy, but it could also expose her to risky repercussions. Was she prepared to navigate that storm? With a sigh, Sarah stepped outside for a moment of clarity. The hospital, a place that felt both like home and a cage, faded behind her. She took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill her lungs as she reflected on the crossroads before her. It was time to confront her fears. She couldn't let uncertainty dictate her choices any longer. Later that night, Sarah set herself a challenge. She would revisit her grandmother's life. Research not just her contributions, but also the challenges she faced, and understand how she paved the way for future generations. As daunting as it was, inspecting her grandmother's journey could provide insights into her own path. She opened her laptop, diving into online databases, searching for publications and interviews. Each discovery added pieces to a puzzle she felt intimately connected to, yet slightly distant from. Hours melted away as she read stories of resilience and courage, and through it all, a pattern emerged. Her grandmother wasn't just a victim of her circumstances. She was a warrior who confronted unjust practices head-on. Inspired, Sarah's resolve hardened. If her grandmother had the courage to push past societal constraints, then surely she could find a way to honor that legacy in her own life. The following morning, Sarah's day at the hospital was tinged with a new vigor. She approached her shifts with a refreshed perspective. Each patient interaction now felt like a glimpse into her purpose, a reminder of why she chose this profession. The connection she forged with each person reminded her of the importance of advocacies, something her grandmother passionately championed. But the phone message lingered in her mind, like a haunting melody that wouldn't fade away. She felt an urge to respond, to uncover this new Ladivin, if it meant stepping into the unknown. As she pondered her next move, ideas around her potential role as an advocate started to crystallize in her mind. Perhaps the truth about her grandmother's achievements could shed light on the challenges she faced in her own career pursuits. With the prospect of genuine change burgeoning within her, Sarah realized that finding her voice was imperative. She didn't just want to honor her grandmother's legacy. She wanted to embrace her own, to become an advocate not just for herself, but for those who'd come before her and those who would come after. The choice ahead was monumental. Engage with the stranger who held the key to unraveling her grandmother's story, or let the opportunity slip away, allowing fear and doubt to once again cloud her aspirations. As she reached for her phone to type a response, a single question echoed through her mind. What if this was the critical moment she had been waiting for? And as she hit send, she could hardly grasp the changes this decision would bring to her journey. What lay ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like an adventure worth taking. In a world filled with shadows, she was finally ready to embrace the light. The phone buzzed again, jolting Sarah from her thoughts. The unfamiliar number flashed on the screen, intensifying the anticipation that churned in her stomach. Not knowing if she was ready for the conversation ahead, she took a moment to gather herself. With a deep breath, she opened the message. "Meet me at the cafe on 5th at 3 p.m. It read. Something about the succinctness of the message felt cryptic, yet concrete, fueling her anticipation. Excitement mingled with anxiety as time stretched on, each tick of the clock feeling more imminent than the last. As the afternoon approached, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities of who this person could be and what they knew about her grandmother. Would they provide insights that would illuminate her understanding of the woman she admired so deeply? Or would this encounter expose shadows that she wasn't ready to confront? She wrestled with the implications, feeling the weight of history resting heavily on her shoulders. The hours leading up to the meeting dragged on. Yet she remained vigilant at her workstation, finding her thoughts tangled between her patients and the unknown revelations awaiting her. Each patient encounter reinforced a growing unease, igniting a determination to not only uncover the truth about her grandmother, but to also bolster her own identity as a competent and passionate nurse. Finally, the clock struck 3, and Sarah gathered her things, taking another deep breath as she stepped outside into the bustling world. The cafe on Fifth was a quaint little spot, bustling with energy, laughter, and chatter. Yet, for Sarah, the air felt thick with tension. Once inside, she cast a glance across the room, scanning for the sender. An older gentleman, with silver hair and a warm expression, sat at a corner table. His presence radiated an authority and faced directionality. Anticipation for their interaction hung around him like a fog. As she approached, his eyes lit up with recognition. "You must be Sarah," he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "I'm Thomas, a friend of your grandmother." The word friend sparked a million questions in Sarah's mind, but she opted for a simpler one. "What brings you here?" Thomas leaned in, his expression shifting from friendly to serious. "I've known your grandmother since she started her career," he started, his voice rich with nostalgia. "There were so many challenges. She faced family pressure, discrimination, and systemic barriers. But she persevered when many would have folded." Each word dripped with authority, capturing her full attention. For the first time, Sarah felt the layers of her grandmother's struggles unfurling before her, bringing light to shadows she had only imagined. "What is it exactly you want to tell me about her?" Sarah probed, the energy between them thickening like an electrical current. With a sigh, Thomas pulled out a faded photograph, placing it gently on the table. This was taken during a nursing conference she organized. It was one of the first all-female panels showcasing groundbreaking research in nursing. As Sarah traced the image, her heart raced. Could this be part of her grandmother's legacy that she had yet to uncover? "I came to see if you're ready to take on her mantle, just as she did years ago. Nursing today is as daunting as it was then, and you carry the potential to make a difference." His words struck her deeply, stirring echoes of her grandmother's spirit within. Could she truly embody that same courage? The possibilities felt electric against the mundane routine of her current life, igniting a fire that had long been dormant. But the thought of stepping into that legacy felt heavy, like a weight too immense to bear. She wasn't sure if she was ready to be that beacon of change, not just for herself, but for others waiting in the wings. "Are you prepared to confront the challenges that lie ahead?" Thomas's question loomed large, a crossroads moment that could reshape her journey irrevocably. Sarah sat at the precipice of a decision that could alter everything. As she searched Thomas's eyes for guidance, uncertainty washed over her, presenting a vivid reflection of her own doubts. Would she rise to meet the challenge, or would she shrink back into the safety of her previous life? The flicker of resolve ignited in her chest, but the raw potential of her path remained daunting. The conversation was barely begun, yet already it felt like it could unravel her future or set it ablaze. "Let's discover it together," she finally said, her voice steady as she committed to the journey ahead, one that could redefine not just her legacy but forge her distinct path. What lay beyond the conversation had yet to be unveiled, and with it came the promise of triumphs and trials. As the meeting progressed, Sarah felt a flicker of transformation, igniting within her spirit a whisper of strength, calling her to delve even deeper into this newfound challenge. As the hours slipped by in the crowded cafe, Thomas's words anchored Sarah in a realm of introspection. Each revelation churned in her mind, melding with the pulse of determination rising within her. Could she carve a path similar to her grandmother's? Would she have the fortitude to face the obstacles that loomed before her? With a sweeping gaze, she noted the other patrons, bustling about their lives, oblivious to her world. Their laughter felt like an alien melody against the backdrop of her unfolding reality. The weight of expectation was palpable, the tension like a taut string, ready to snap. Yet there was a powerful sense of clarity brewing beneath it all, a burgeoning understanding that this journey was not just about uncovering her grandmother's past, but defining her own future. "Tell me more," she urged Thomas, drawing him out of his contemplative silence. What specific hurdles did she face? How did she overcome them? His eyes narrowed slightly, as if recalling the depths of history, the struggles woven into the fabric of her grandmother's legacy. She encountered obstacles that would have turned most away prejudice, that sought to undermine her capabilities. Familial expectations tugging at her choices. But your grandmother found ways to harness those very challenges into strengths. Her heart pounded as Thomas detailed the stories of mentorships born from adversity. Of nights spent poring over books, when everyone else stepped out for social distractions. Her grandmother's tenacity bled through the narrative, permeating the very air around them. Sarah could feel her own resolve sharpening. She was here for more than just a conversation. She was here to learn, to grow, and finally, to act. Was she ever afraid? Sarah's question slipped out, her voice resonating with the weight of vulnerability. Did she doubt herself? Thomas nodded knowingly. Of course she did. Doubt is part of the journey. It's how we manage that doubt that defines our course. The insight echoed through Sarah, rousing an uncomfortable truth within herself. All those moments waiting for validation at work, questioning her decisions with patience, all felt rooted in that same fear of inadequacy. Yet, with her grandmother's legacy as a potential anchor, she sensed an opportunity for evolution. Tell me about the conference, she pressed, urgency threading through her tone. What did she accomplish there? This time, Thomas's face broke into a proud smile. That panel changed the conversation around nursing. Women were finally given a stage to speak about their contributions. Your grandmother was fearless. She spoke not only of care, but of reform and innovation, raising a banner that called for equality within the medical field. Sarah leaned forward, captivated. Images of working side by side with women who believed and pushed boundaries flooded her mind. The thought generated a rush of possibility against her doubts. Just as her grandmother had lit the fire of change, so too could she. I want to be a part of that legacy. I want to rise to that mantle, she declared, the conviction in her voice growing with each syllable. Thomas regarded her intently. Then you must be ready to challenge the status quo. It will require fierce dedication and a willingness to confront discomfort. Are you prepared for the pushback? Her breath caught. The reality of Thomas's words sunk deep. Her path would not be free of conflict or disagreement, and she could indeed meet resistance head-on. This would involve bringing forth her own voice, an action both exhilarating and terrifying. I will deal with it, she responded, the words firm yet laden with the enormity of commitment. It is time I confront my own doubts as fiercely as I would advocate for my patients. With that, Sarah felt an unmistakable shift inside her. No longer was she merely seeking to understand her grandmother's legacy. She was actively stepping into it, embracing the very essence of what it meant to be a nursing professional. Thomas smiled, clearly recognizing the transition unfolding. Then it's time to plan your next steps. Together, we will honor her legacy and build on it, finding ways to challenge the narrative and inspire others in the process. As their discussion deepened into strategy and opportunities, Sarah felt momentum swelling, surging forth with purpose. By combining her potential with her grandmother's enduring spirit, she felt a profound alignment unfolding within her AII, match striking to kindling. The inferno of her career awaited. Yet, even as she embraced this trajectory, there remained an unsettling thought. Was she ready to face not just external challenges, but the personal demons that came with success? And was there more to her grandmother's history, more shadows yet to be emerged? As Sarah pondered that, she realized that this journey was only just beginning, one that might test her resolve at every turn, pushing her into uncharted territories of her personal and professional existence. What awaited her on this path was shrouded in the unknown, and somehow, that made her heart race with exhilaration. Let's start working on your vision, Thomas encouraged, pulling out a notebook. But Sarah felt another stirring beneath the surface, a whisper of uncertainty edging forward, revealing that her grandmother's story might contain elements that were far more complex and revealing than she ever anticipated. Was she truly prepared to uncover the deeper truths waiting to be revealed about her grandmother? The notebook sat open in front of Sarah, blank pages daunting in their expanse. just waiting for her thoughts to come tumbling out. A gulp caught in her throat as the gravity of the moment seeped in. This was a turning point, but how would she define it? Could she distill her aspirations into tangible goals? Let's start with a vision statement, Thomas prompted, eyes bright with encouragement. His pen hovered, waiting for her to provide a starting point. Right, she began, wanting to sound assertive, yet the words tangled in her mind. I want to empower patients, perhaps, advocate for change within the system. Her voice trailed off, uncertain. The ambition, once a glowing ember, felt dampened when set against the vastness of the medical landscape. Would anyone even care what she had to say? Empowerment is the core, Thomas affirmed, jotting down her thoughts. But it has to be coupled with a sense of who you are and where you want to go. What truly drives you? His question struck like a lightning bolt, illuminated a path of clarity. She envisioned her early experiences in nursing school, the nervous excitement of her first clinical rounds, the power of patient connections, the stinging lessons of failures. I guess it's about bridging the gap, connecting patient needs with medical practice, she replied, her confidence gradually building. Each word now felt like a stepping stone. I want to advocate for better communication, both ways. Patients need to express their fears, and we need to listen. Drawing nearer, Thomas nodded thoughtfully, as if weighing her words, assessing their potential impact. Excellent. It's the personal touch that fosters real change. Now, how will you accomplish that? A swirl of ideas erupted in her mind. She pictured community workshops, public discussions, perhaps even articles addressing the unspoken fears of her patients. Maybe I could start a series of forums for both medical staff and patients, she proposed. Nervous, but emboldened by Thomas's unwavering gaze. Brilliant, very timely. But, remember, not everyone will support you. There may be those who see your endeavors as impractical, or even threatening, he warned, the seriousness of his tone sharpening the air around them. This comment tugged her back to the lurking doubts. Was she foolish to think change could come through her actions? Looming criticisms hounded her imagination, wrapping around her thoughts like ivy choking a tree. Confrontation loomed ahead. Yet, as she weighed the potential roadblocks against her desire to ignite change, a fire ignited within. I'm willing to face that. I will advocate for my patients regardless of how others react, she declared, an edge of determination sharpening her tone. The look in Thomas's eyes reflected approval, but beneath it lay a flicker of concern. That's the spirit, but don't underestimate the turbulence that comes with confrontation. Keep your values close. There will be times when it feels overwhelming. Uncertainty washed over her, intertwining with her burgeoning courage. Was she prepared to cultivate that authenticity amidst the backlash? A part of her wondered if she could withstand the weight of mediocrity, poised to crush aspiration. Could she become the kind of advocate she envisioned, even if it ruffled feathers along the way? Suddenly, the realization hit her. Her grandmother's legacy was not just a banner to be held aloft in abstract terms, but a living testament to resilience in the face of adversity. It was she who had painstakingly chipped away at barriers, confronting her fears while defying the doubts of naysayers. Would Sarah be capable of owning that same legacy? Let's refine that vision statement, Thomas urged, pulling her back into the moment. Focus on a definitive goal, something actionable. As they worked together through the shifting tides of her aspirations, the hours slipped away unnoticed. Encouragement infused each insightful comment from Thomas, igniting clarity where once there had been fog. By the time they finished, Sarah felt the weight of a blueprint emerging, one built upon determination and purpose. Then, as she reflected upon her grandmother, Sarah felt the urgency swelling within. Yes, there were shadows yet to uncover about her past intricacies, of struggle woven through the fabric of their shared legacy. But perhaps, there was more waiting to unfold about herself. The air hummed around her, charged with possibilities, as Thomas's voice cut through her reverie. Now that we have a clearer vision, it's about execution. You're ready to take the next step. But remember, Resilience often lies in the truth you uncover within yourself. Those words echoed, settling into the corners of her mind as an important revelation dawned. Hidden strengths, she realized, were only waiting to be unveiled. She would have to wrestle with both confidence and vulnerability, each arm wrestling for dominance inside her. Yet, there was one nagging question lingering, poised like a shadow around her newfound ambition. What truths about her grandmother's life might challenge the very foundation of her growing resolve? Determined, she resolved to launch her plans, while confronting her own potential battle with fear. Fully knowing the journey toward clarity and confidence was only just beginning. What lay ahead was exhilarating, yet it would demand every ounce of strength and honesty she could muster. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows that mirrored the complexity of Sarah's thoughts as she stepped out of the meeting room. The conversation with Thomas had sparked new insights, momentum building within her like a drumbeat urging her forward. Yet, the lingering doubts about her grandmother's legacy gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the expectations and pressures that potentially awaited her on this uncharted path. Bracing herself, she took a deep breath and made her way to the nursing wing. Each step felt monumental, a pledge to the vision she had articulated. This was no longer just an idea to advocate for her patients. It was a necessity rooted in her personal history, in stories of hardship that paralleled her own journey. In the quiet space of her office, Sarah set about crafting a comprehensive plan for the forums she envisioned. As she typed, thoughts surged through her mind. What exactly were the barriers to open communication? Who in the medical staff would be receptive to this initiative? The questions morphed into a whirlwind of action, grounding her in purpose. Then came the reality check. Her phone pinged, a message from the nurse manager, invitation to join the weekly staff meeting. Sarah hesitated. This was where the conformity of bureaucracy often stifled new ideas, where innovation could be viewed as a threat. She envisioned the skeptical glances, the whispers about her latest ambitions. But as her pulse quickened, she felt a rush of adrenaline. The thrill of confrontation ignited even more determination. Arriving at the meeting, the atmosphere weighed heavily with familiarity, yet to her, it now felt fraught with tension. Sarah took a seat at the table, her heart racing, acutely aware of the gazes around her. People exchanged polite smiles, but she sensed cautious curiosity lurking beneath. When the time came for departmental updates, she seized the moment, allowing Thomas's encouraging words to echo in her mind. I want to discuss an initiative aimed at enhancing communication between patients and staff, she began, her voice steady, betraying none of her inner turmoil. Glancing around the room, she recognized the surprise etched on some faces. The goal is to bridge the gap, to better understand patient fears, and foster an environment where they feel heard. Murmurs swirled in the room, a mix of intrigue and doubt. Isn't that a bit impractical? One nurse interjected, skepticism lacing her tone. We already have protocols in place. The challenge stung, a reminder of the resistance she anticipated. I believe we can improve those protocols, Sarah countered, her voice sharpening. If we truly want to advocate for our patients, we need to engage with them on a deeper level. An uncomfortable silence permeated the air. The stirring of confrontation felt tangible, almost palpable. It was a moment of truth, the kind Thomas had warned her about. Her heart bore the weight of the legacy she was trying to uphold. To be an advocate not just for her patients but for a systemic change she believed was essential. Just as she prepared for a counterargument, another nurse, someone she had worked alongside for years, nodded in agreement. I think it sounds worth exploring, she offered, her voice steady, a single candle in the looming darkness. Encouraged, Sarah pressed on, pouring out her vision, articulating the potential for real, transformative change grounded in communication. In that moment, she could feel a shift, not just in the room, but within herself. The quaking doubt was losing its grip. As the meeting adjourned, Sarah felt the surge of adrenaline subside but gave way to an unsettling uncertainty. The flicker of support ignited hope, Yet she sensed the path ahead was still fraught with resistance. Determined, she knew she needed to prepare for the pushback she would face. How deeply rooted were those barriers she wished to dismantle? The turbulence of personal and professional challenges lay ahead. As she exited the meeting room, a familiar face approached, Thomas' eyes glinting with pride. "You did well today," he praised. "But be ready, this is just the beginning. The fight to change minds is daunting, but your voice deserves to be heard." A flicker of confidence ignited within her, despite the shadows of doubt still lurking alongside her ambition. What revelations awaited her in the unraveling layers of her grandmother's story? What truths still rested within her own heart, dormant yet potent? "Yes," she thought, firm in her resolve. "I am prepared to face whatever comes next." But just as those thoughts echoed in her mind, an unexpected text notification distracted her. It was a photo of a letter her grandmother had written long ago. What secrets lay hidden in that message? Sarah's breath hitched, a new twist of fate teetering on the edge of revelation, demanding her attention as she realized the significance of what was unfolding. What was in that letter awaiting her discovery? The room felt heavy with anticipation as Sarah stared at the photo of the letter on her phone. The faded paper and elegant cursive were nostalgic, transporting her back to her grandmother's stories, the ones woven with hope and hardship. Each folded corner and ink smudge carried a weight of history, making her pulse quicken with curiosity and trepidation. What had her grandmother written that felt so pivotal now? With trembling fingers, she tapped to enlarge the image. The words seemed to leap out at her. "Never shy away from truth, even when it shakes your foundations." The inscription reverberated in her mind, igniting a spark she thought had flickered out. Was this a sign? A validation of her journey? An urgent need surged within her to understand not just her grandmother's wisdom, but the parallel paths their lives had taken, if she was to champion communication and empathy within her workplace. Perhaps her grandmother's experiences could imbue her with courage. The prospect of peeling back layers of her family's past was suddenly intertwined with her professional pursuits. Hours later, Sarah found herself engrossed in her grandmother's writings, research notes, and diaries. The breadth of her legacy filled her with a mix of admiration and dread. Each page turned revealed trails a woman fighting against systemic barriers in her own time, advocating for community care when ignorance ran rampant. This was more than just a family history. It was a manifesto of resilience she could emulate. Yet, with each revelation, self-doubt lurked again. What if she fell short of that legacy? Sarah wrestled with the daunting comparisons in her mind, questioning her own abilities to invoke similar change. Was she equipped to navigate the entrenched resistance she faced in her nursing environment? This conflict turned incessantly in her mind, drawing her into a swirl of anxiety. The next day, armed with her renewed resolve, she scheduled a brainstorming session with a small group of colleagues, willing to explore her initiative. While she felt exhilarated at the prospect of collaboration, an undercurrent of uncertainty clung to her. Would they share her vision of challenging the status quo? As she walked into the room, her confidence wavered. Chairs were arranged in a circle, a casual layout that felt inviting yet intimate. Faces she had known for years wore expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. "Thanks for joining me. I want to talk about how we can reshape our approach to patient communication," Sarah started, attempting to project assurance. Her heart raced as she spoke, piece by piece unveiling her plan. By creating a forum, we can allow patients to voice their experiences and concerns directly. A nurse who had been particularly vocal during the last staff meeting leaned back, crossing her arms. "Sarah, this isn't a group therapy session. Patients come here to receive care, not air grievances. What's your end game?" The question struck a nerve, challenging the very essence of Sarah's intention. For a heartbeat, doubt threatened to overshadow her determination. "This isn't about airing grievances, but about fostering understanding," she replied, steeling her voice. "If we want to provide the best care, we need to connect with our patients, not just treat them. Isn't that our job? An unexpected nod came from another colleague, followed by murmurs in agreement. Sarah seized the moment, feeling the air of possibility shift slightly in her favor. We have the potential to build trust, to make care a true partnership. As conversation began to flow, adrenaline pulsed through her veins. In this space, shared with her peers, she felt less alone against the tides of skepticism as they started brainstorming practical ways to implement her ideas. But just as she found her momentum, the nerves from before interrupted. And what happens when those voices become too loud? We have protocols for a reason, Sarah. It's a slippery slope. The slight chill in her stomach resembled the first tremor of an approaching storm. This was confronting reality head-on. The unfiltered angst she feared wasn't just an abstract concern, it was a tangible threat to her vision. A sprawling web of potential conflict and institutional pushback lay ahead. Recognizing this was where her real battle would begin. Sarah squared her shoulders, fueled by a lingering line from her grandmother's letter. She could not walk away. This was about taking a stand for herself and her patients. I can't promise it will be easy, she said, her voice bearing the conviction of someone anchored in purpose. But if we are going to truly provide care, we have to face whatever comes. It's time to reshape the narrative. Her words hung in the air, inviting challenge yet steeped in resolve. She looked around the room, heart racing. Had she just ignited something vital? Was this the threshold of transformation? As the weight of possibility pressed in, a text notification broke through her thoughts, a message from Thomas, asking if they could meet later to discuss her progress. The question erupted in her mind. What would be the cost if she pressed on? And what more would she uncover about herself by unearthing her grandmother's secrets? Just as the gravity of that question settled into her psyche, it hit her that she was on the precipice of either monumental progress or confronting overwhelming obstacles. Both paths glimmered tantalizingly. What clarity awaited her in the next conversation with Thomas? What decision would she make that could shape not just her work, but her very identity? The weight of anticipation loomed in the air as Sarah paced in her small apartment, her mind racing with the implications of her upcoming meeting with Thomas. The passion she had felt at the brainstorming session mingled with anxiety now, turning her eager heart into a clenched fist. This was not merely a conversation about her initiative. It felt like a moment that could dictate the trajectory of her career. The clock ticked on the wall, each second stressing the urgency of her internal conflict. What if Thomas deemed her ideas impractical? What if he didn't share her vision? The very real possibility that her plans could crumble beneath the scrutiny gnawed at her resolve. At that moment, it struck her just how fragile courage could feel. In that swirl of self-doubt, a flicker of her grandmother's unwavering spirit broke through. She was not alone in this fight. The legacy of grit and resilience was with her, pulsing in the very core of her aspirations. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself, trying to embrace the surge of determination that had ignited earlier that week. When the doorbell rang, it jolted her back to the present. She opened the door to Thomas, his friendly smile present yet guarded, as if he understood the storm brewing in her mind. "Hey, thanks for inviting me over," he said, stepping inside and glancing around the modest space with interest. "Thanks for coming," she replied, nervous energy coursing through her. They settled at her kitchen table, where the remnants of her research papers were still strewn about, a testament to the whirlwind of thoughts that had consumed her. "So, how did the brainstorming session go?" His tone was casual, but Sarah sensed an underlying seriousness. He was probing, searching for insight. The initial feedback was mixed, she admitted, feeling the tension build around them. Some were on board, but there is a lot of skepticism. He nodded thoughtfully, leaning back in his chair. Skepticism can be healthy. It challenges us to refine our ideas. But you seem to have a vision that goes beyond just fulfilling protocols, right? Yes, exactly. I believe we can create a genuine partnership with our patients. It's essential for trust, she responded, her voice gaining strength. But I worry that the traditional mindset will stifle this initiative before it even begins. Thomas's brow furrowed as he considered her words. That's a valid concern. Have you thought about how to counter that? Maybe addressing those concerns directly in your next meeting could show your commitment. Her thoughts raced. Could it be that simple? I could prepare a presentation highlighting not just the benefits for patients, but also for the hospital, showing tangible outcomes from increased patient engagement. A pulse of excitement surged through her. Perhaps she had found a strategy to bridge the gap between innovation and tradition. Exactly. If you can prove it with data, you strengthen your case significantly, he encouraged, his enthusiasm infectious. But what if you integrate elements of your grandmother's journey? How could those experiences enrich your narrative? His question pierced through her layers of self-doubt, expanding her perspective. That rich history of advocacy and vulnerability her grandmother embodied was not just past, could become her narrative. She could intertwine truth and emotion into her discussions, framing them around the idea of transformation shaped by understanding. I never thought of that, she mused, warmth blooming in her chest. It's not just facts and figures. It's about the people behind those numbers. I can use her story to articulate why this is important and connect our patients to something larger than procedures. Thomas's face brightened, encouraging her flow of ideas. Absolutely. It's an opportunity to unite empathy with analysis. You can create a multifaceted argument that appeals to both heart and mind. As they delved deeper, Sarah felt the weight begin to lift. She was no longer merely focused on potential pitfalls. She was redesigning her approach, and the more she spoke, the more clarity unfolded. Each idea ignited a new sense of purpose, revealing strengths she didn't fully recognize she possessed. But just as optimism flooded her thoughts, a pang of fear crept in again. What if she presented her grandmother's story only to face a harsh backlash? It could expose vulnerabilities she'd rather hide. She braced herself against uncertainty, battling shadows of doubt and recalling her grandmother's words urging resilience. Evaluate and prepare for criticism, but don't let it deter you, Thomas stated, his voice steadying. You're capable of navigating this. Trust in your ability to reshape the narrative. His faith in her planted a seed of hope, fostered by the reminder that advocacy ignored personal experiences, robbed the profession of its humanity. Sarah's spirit ignited, fueled by the merging of both her worlds and the prospect of fostering an environment of understanding through her grandmother's lessons. As they wrapped up, Sarah felt a renewed sense of direction. She would harness the strength of her lineage to forge a new path within her work. But lurking just beneath the surface was the anxiety of facing her colleagues' skepticism again, that familiar tension threatening to derail her passion. Are you ready for the next step? Thomas asked, his gaze penetrating, as if he sensed her inner turmoil. Taking a deep breath, she nodded slowly, uncertainty still ebbing and flowing within her. I'm ready to face whatever comes, something has awakened within me. But with that determination settled in her heart, a sharp realization struck. What if revisiting her grandmother's narrative became the key to her own revelation? What stories would she need to confront from her own past? As the weight of those questions hung between them, she recognized that the real journey was only just beginning. In the days that followed her meeting with Thomas, Sarah found herself consumed by the dual burden of anticipation and dread. Each time she reflected on the upcoming presentation, her resolve wavered. She meticulously crafted her arguments, assembling data that showcased the benefits of engaging with patients, yet insecurities bubbled beneath the surface. The image of her grandmother's resilient face lingered in her mind, urging her forward even as uncertainty clawed at her spirit. Every evening, she returned to that small kitchen table, a chaotic canvas of research papers and heartfelt notes that chronicled her grandmother's journey. The more she pondered over these stories, the more she discovered an unexpected source of strength. Her grandmother had faced opposition, had confronted tradition with tenacity. yet remained steadfast in her belief that change was necessary. Each anecdote unlocked a fragment of courage within Sarah, illuminating her path like faded footsteps on an old road. On a particularly restless night, as the clock ticked toward midnight, Sarah abruptly pushed back her chair. She had spent hours reviewing data, practicing her presentation to an empty room, but now felt disconnected from the very essence of what she hoped to convey. It wasn't just about statistics. It was about people, connections, and the transformative power of understanding. She grabbed a notebook and scribbled down her grandmother's stories, transcribing moments of both triumph and heartbreak. That act of writing was cathartic, stitching together the fabric of the past with her present aspirations. Her grandmother's struggles and resilience were not merely relics of history. They were the living roots of her own ambition. The next day at work, an email notification from Thomas startled her. He wanted to meet again, this time with the team. Just as anxiety stirred in her gut, a surge of adrenaline pushed back, igniting a newfound determination. This was the moment she had been preparing for, a convergence of ideas and emotions, evolving into something palpable. When the meeting day arrived, Sarah fought through the familiar whirlpool of nerves. As she sat before her colleagues, she felt the weight of many eyes on her, expectations unfolding like fragile petals. She began with a simple introduction, carefully weaving her grandmother's narrative into her presentation. The anecdotes poured out, rich with textures of love, struggle, advocacy, and unwavering hope. It was not merely a story to complement her statistics. It was a bridge to foster empathy. She could see the initial skepticism in her colleagues' expressions fade. The narrative resonated, stirring emotions, and creating a dynamic shift in the room. With every personal story shared, Sarah noticed nods of understanding, a collective inhalation of realization that patient engagement went beyond protocols. It was intertwined with a shared humanity. But just as she gathered momentum, one of the senior colleagues interjected. "These are touching stories, Sarah, but how do we manage the logic behind this initiative when it clashes with our existing framework?" His probing inquiries sought to undermine the heartfelt narrative she had woven. Sarah's heart raced. Cracks of doubt threatened her newfound confidence. But in that instant, she remembered her grandmother's resilience, the ability to counter adversity with steadfastness. Steeling her resolve, she replied, "Understanding the emotional landscape of our patients is as critical as data. To integrate change successfully, we must balance analytical methods with compassion. It's not about dismissing the framework, but rather evolving it to include the voices we often overlook." Her voice, once timid, now carried the weight of clarity. As silence fell upon the room, a new dynamic emerged. It ignited an earnest discussion about the paradigm shift that could take place if they chose to embrace both tradition and innovation. Ideas erupted, building off the foundation she had laid, ultimately leading to a collaborative momentum that felt unprecedented. When the meeting adjourned, Sarah stepped out into the hallway, her heart still racing. Had the tide turned in her favor? As colleagues approached her with smiles and words of encouragement, she felt a sense of validation wash over her. But amidst that burst of optimism, one lingering question remained in the back of her mind. What would it mean to fully embrace the lessons of her past, while navigating the daunting complexity of the present? As she stood there, moonlight glimmering through the windows, she sensed an uncharted territory before her, a landscape filled with possibilities but also steeped in the uncertainty of how far she could go. That thought haunted her as she walked home, breathing in the cool night air. She was beginning to see that her journey was neither straightforward nor comfortable. But it was hers, and with every ounce of courage she summoned, she was determined to carve her own path. With a sense of resolve, Sarah mused silently. Her next challenge awaited her, a step deeper into her own narrative. Would uncovering more of her history provide the key to her future, or would it unveil more complexities she'd rather leave untouched? In the days that followed her invigorating meeting, Sarah embraced the realization that her path forward was more nuanced than she had anticipated. The engagement she felt from her colleagues fueled her ambition, yet the uncertainty still loomed. What awaited her as she dove deeper into her grandmother's history? Would these revelations bolster her mission, or complicate her journey further? Determined to confront these questions, she dedicated each spare moment to researching her grandmother's life. The visceral weight of the stories she uncovered filled her with admiration and trepidation. The resistance her grandmother faced stood as a testament to resilience, but the fear of stepping into those same shoes clung to her. The widening disconnect between her ambition and her doubts became an ever-pressing issue, and she knew deep down that she had to confront this duality. One evening, surrounded by a scattered collection of clippings and letters, something within her shifted. A phrase from her grandmother's writings echoed a truth she had to accept: embrace the discomfort. It is where growth lives. This became the anchor she needed, an acknowledgement that pushing boundaries required stepping into the unknown. Grappling with vulnerability and courage, side by side. The following week, she felt ready to revisit her peers, with her budding vision and newfound conviction. Sarah meticulously prepared for yet another meeting, this time determined to expand beyond mere engagement. She would articulate the importance of cultural competence, how understanding diverse patient narratives could redefine care standards and promote health equity. As she entered the conference room, the energy felt palpable. Colleagues filtered in, their familiar faces tinged with curiosity. With an air of confidence, Sarah began her presentation, articulating the nuances of patient interactions and their potential impact on outcomes. She integrated her grandmother's story into her message, illustrating tangible lessons learned through trial and perseverance. Her colleagues leaned in, their initial skepticism varying into sparks of interest. Ideas flowed freely as she encouraged them to share their perspectives on deficiency gaps rooted within the patient system dynamics. The conversation morphed into a brainstorming session, rich with collaborative spirit. Sarah felt invigorated, fully embracing the power of dialogue. The exchange transformed what could have been mere resistance into a nurturing ground for mutual understanding. Halfway through the discussion, the same senior colleague who had challenged her during her last presentation raised his hand. "Sarah, these insights are important. Although I see your vision taking shape, is there measurable data to support these initiatives? Something we can present to administration for funding?" For a moment, uncertainty flickered in her chest. How could she build a case for empathy and shared experiences in a world often driven by numbers? Just as doubt threatened to pull her back, she recalled her earlier commitment to confrontation. "We can start by collecting qualitative data from our patients on their experiences. Anonymized feedback could highlight their needs and concerns." With those words, she found herself not just talking about numbers, but illustrating the potential for real, human stories behind the statistics. The room buzzed with renewed energy, voices blending in a symphony of excitement. Ideas flowed like a river, reinforcing a shared commitment to advocacy. By the end of the meeting, Sarah stepped back from the table with a sense of deep satisfaction. Her voice had resonated, not just as an individual, but as part of a profession committed to meaningful change. Initial skepticism had morphed into enthusiasm, reaffirming her evolving role as a catalyst for communication. As conversations shifted toward actionable steps and implementation strategies, she felt the resonance of her grandmother's legacy coursing through her veins, a shared commitment to champion justice and empathy that transcended generations. The mission had become personal, yet it no longer felt insurmountable. Later that evening, reflecting on the day's triumphs and ongoing questions, Sarah realized she had made significant strides not just in her professional life, but in the depths of her self-worth. She was ready to embrace who she was at her core: a nurse, an advocate, and a profound believer in change. The heart of her grandmother's legacy pulsed vibrantly in her spirit, a testament to courage like none other. Walking through the quiet kitchen, she spotted the stack of forgotten letters, remnants of hidden truths still calling for exploration. What further stories lay within those pages? What additional lessons awaited her, waiting for the time to be unearthed? Could confronting these narratives truly empower not just herself, but also cultivate hope in others she served? As she reached for the letters, a deep resolve coursed through her. No longer plagued by uncertainty, she felt equipped to face whatever revelations awaited. She was ready to continue unearthing her grandmother's past, not only for herself but as a tribute to the legacy they shared. It was time to reclaim her narrative and fully embrace the responsibility that came along with it. Sarah was determined to honor her family's history while forging her own identity in the nursing profession. Transformation grounded in authenticity and clarity. With new clarity and invigorated ambition, Sarah welcomed the challenge ahead. The fight for change might engage shadows of resistance, but now she understood the very essence of growth lies within the labyrinth of truth, waiting to be liberated. It was time to move forward, brave new conversations, and advocate for meaningful transformation, both for herself and for every patient seeking a voice. As she prepared to unfold her grandmother's stories within the pages of time, Sarah recognized that her journey was no longer just about forging a path. It was also about illuminating the roads for others to follow. This was her moment of transcendence, a journey defined not just by past struggles, but by the unyielding resolve to emerge victorious and carry forth the torch of legacy into an evolving, empathetic future. Now, it's your turn to embrace the stories that transform lives. You need to subscribe now to catch the next chapter of personal evolution and advocacy. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these movements alive. Comment your reactions, personal growth journey, or theories about the next steps for our heroine. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need a spark of inspiration in their lives. Don't wait even one more second to make a difference.